Vintage Sand.
Hello, hello, hello! Welcome to Vintage Sand, episode 15, and now you get to hear me sing, "This is the end, beautiful friend, the end," which is not fair, actually, because that's the beginning of that great movie. That's the opening of Apocalypse Now, but right. I sing it, as you can call it singing, because we are focusing today in episode 15. We're going the opposite of episode 6. Episode 6, we focused on beginnings.
Do you know the original, when he first showed Apocalypse Now, there were no credits?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
When I saw it,
I can't imagine
it was very effective.
And cue napalm. I can't imagine that movie without no broken glass and the mirror.
I saw it at the Ziegfeld, and they handed out the.
That's how when I saw it too. When I first saw it, there were no, and it was beautiful the way they did it.
I like that.
Wow. That's a thought. But we are focusing on endings, and we take this episode's name after my all-time favorite title card, which I've mentioned in these pages before. That would be the end of Jean-Luc Godard's Weekend, which is the end of his great period from 60 to 67, and you may recall that the end of card says, end of film, end of cinema. I mean, JLG's a little bit arrogant, but you cannot spell Godard without G-O-D. So, and we'll have to argue that one out sometime. But so today, on episode 15, we're going to be talking about our favorite movie endings, and something that is almost as difficult, maybe more difficult than beginnings to do well. We've talked a lot about how directors, even our greatest directors, seem to have forgotten how to do endings. I point to Lincoln as an example. You have that perfect ending with him walking down the hall into history, and then
that would have been. It's funny, as I know we've talked about this before. I think that would have been a great place to end it. At the same time, I like the part afterwards when it continues.
Yeah, but we're in a theater, but it's not that theater. It's where Robert's going to see a magic show.
That was an odd choice.
What?
That was an odd choice.
Or and we've talked about the end of Departed also. I mean, first of all, let's forget about the rat on the balcony, because that's the single worst last shot ever. We'll get that out of the way now. From one of our greatest directors.
I'm guessing it was in the script, and for whatever reason, Scorsese didn't put his foot down. Ripped the page out. Get
it? It's about rats. But the film goes on for 45 minutes too long. It's because folks don't seem to trust. Spielberg does that too. Look at Saving Private Ryan.
All of Spielberg's movies go on too long.
I mean, end it with Tom Hanks. Earn this. Earn this.
I know.
Don't go back to the graveyard with.
I hate the ending of Saving Private Ryan.
God, yeah. Why?
Yeah, he could have. I think that would have been a perfect thing. Earn this.
And then just a close-up freeze frame of his face. Done.
Fade out. Done.
Yeah.
We all would have walked out of the theater with our heads hanging down, but
instead we get, no, was I a good person?
Oh, God.
Did I live a good life?
I wanted to yell no.
Oh, God, Lord, what? Trust
us. Who cares?
We got it. So even our greatest directors, even the Spielbergs and the Scorseses, have problems with endings. So to do a great ending is something that is a true achievement. And so
I found it very hard to narrow it down to
Oh my God, yeah. Well, and
so many things kept popping into my head.
I didn't entirely. I cheated a tiny bit, but that's okay. I did on the beginnings episode too. Episode 6, by the way, which is freaking awesome. Check it out. I
just picked 5 that I really liked. I mean, I'm not saying these are the best. I like yours. I like a couple of yours. I
can't say my 5 are the best endings ever. I wouldn't attempt to say that, but at the same time, I was trying to get variety.
Yeah.
And ones that also have very, very great last shots, but also they don't just. It's not just a great shot. The movie has built up to that moment.
Exactly, and I think all of ours qualify for that. But I just have 2 questions before we begin. Question number 1: will John go with Citizen Kane again? Drum roll, please.
No.
Oh, all right.
And I purposely, I've talked about Citizen Kane quite a bit, so I decided I would not do that, even though I think it's a great ending. And
it's brilliant. No trespassing.
And
second question
is everything just leading up to that last part too. The shots of all paraphernalia in the basement and everything, and the flames licking at the sled, and then following the smoke out the chimney.
But we're not doing Citizen Kane, everybody. I just want to let you know. And the second question, of course, is what's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? All right, with the all-time, the one scene in that film in 7 that Fincher shoots outdoors, not in the rain and the dark, is just that's on my honorable mention list. The end of 7, that entire sequence out in the desert is just.
I have never seen 7.
Oh, I've seen it.
It's very disturbing and upsetting and graphic and kind of gross.
Yeah. But I saw it once, and I was kind of like, that's enough.
It was extreme, but the ending was completely unexpected.
Who directed that?
Fincher. It was Fincher's first great film, and then he had that nice run into The Game, and then into Fight Club, and then he became just a really, really good Hollywood director.
I didn't like Fight Club, and I didn't like The Game.
I love Fight Club. Some people put Fight Club on the top of their
I know they do.
final shot list. Yeah, the building's coming down, and I'll take 7 because that scene just takes you at about 12 left turns as you go.
Well, a lot of people consider the ending of Inception is one of the great endings.
That's in my honorable mentions too.
I mean, it's been analyzed that last part.
No, and I've never seen that reaction in an audience before when the top is spinning, and it looks like it's wavering a little bit, and then cut to black, and the whole audience went, "Oh, come on!" It's like, no, it's like I love it. Well, guys know how I feel about Chris Nolan. I think he's maybe our best around today. So, anyhow, we move on to Michael. Why don't you start us off?
Okay, I'm starting off with my all-time favorite movie, which is Vertigo. I know we've talked about it several times.
We avoided Vertigo for I think 4 or 5 episodes. I think it's pretty good.
It's back.
It's back.
Well, I chose it as one of my beginnings.
And I'm choosing it as one of my endings, and it is an amazing ending. With Scotty Ferguson forcing Judy to return to the scene of the crime, where Galvin Elster throws his wife off the tower, drags her up to the winding stairway, and then he gets to the top. She pleads with him. She really does love him and didn't want to go through with the murder. None appears. I hear voices. And Judy throws herself off the tower.
Does she or does she fall? I've always wondered about
that. Well, we're not sure. Yeah, we're not sure.
I always thought that she was startled by the nun. And she backs up and...
You're not sure. I always like to think that she just saw the nun and just gave up.
It's possible. It's very possible.
Well, when you first see it, it looks like a ghost.
Yeah. Exactly. But what's beautiful is the last shot. Scotty just stands there and looks down and looks after her. And we don't know what he's going to do.
And his arm's in the same position as he is in the dream.
Right.
Yeah.
Also that shot. Well, I don't want to interrupt you because you're probably going to...
That's okay. But we're
among friends.
Interrupt me.
The shot, it's the way it's composed. It's like he's standing or lying in a grave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And what's beautiful about it is we don't know what he's going to do. If he's going to throw himself off after her, if he's going to go back to Midge, or if he's going to become catatonic again.
Yeah.
He just stands there, and the film stops. Not even the end, which is unusual for movies.
I'm getting there with the Hitchcock, too.
What?
Now, there is an additional ending.
Oh, the European. You had to mention the European ending.
Oh, in fact, I have a theory about the European ending, and I have it on the DVD of Vertigo. The DVD says it was an ending that European markets forced Hitchcock to make. And it's Midge listening to the radio in her apartment, and it's announced that Galvin Elster, the mastermind of the murder, was at large in Europe, and authorities were closing on them. She turns off the radio. Scotty walks in the apartment. Midge wordlessly makes him a drink, and that's it. No music, nothing. Now, I looked up on Wikipedia. They said it wasn't European markets, that it was Paramount. Basically, the code.
Right. Couldn't let a murder get away.
Wanted an additional ending. And because, look at Diallo Beak. They get away with it, know, and that was a very, very popular movie. Now, and I think Hitchcock was forced to put on that second ending, and he made it as bland as possible. because it is a bland ending.
Yeah, it's like the forced ending to Last Laugh that they did for Murnau. Murnau one ended tragically, and they made it end with him saving this millionaire in the bathroom. Remember, who gives him like all his whole, and Murnau made it as stupid as possible to get back at the studio.
I think he made this as bland as he can, and to my knowledge, it was never actually shown.
With that ending
with
in
that
the
ending
U.S.
anywhere.
Certainly hope not. Not
even in
Europe.
No.
Really?
See, I think they're too embarrassed, the producers of the restoration, to admit that it was here that they forced Hitchcock to make that ending.
What do you think about the thought that after he basically forces her up there.
Yeah.
He
drags her. There's that amazing shot of the feet.
Yeah. He's got to get it out of his system. Mm-hmm. That by doing that and climbing the stairs and her dying, that he's exercised.
Yes.
He's able to move on.
He's able to. He's cured his vertigo. I made it.
Yeah.
It's possible. But then, look what happens.
Then again, I know. How can someone...
I don't know. We're very apt pupils. We should be able to figure this out.
Well, that's what I love about Vertigo, is the fact that it doesn't have a definite ending.
Surprising for 1958.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I've run into so many people who just assume that he jumps. I mean, it's
possible.
Yeah, that's what I've heard a lot of people say that.
It's possible. We never know for sure. Of course, if you put on that stupid ending afterwards, then you know he doesn't jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, I wish some of our more recent filmmakers had ended when they should have, like Hitchcock knew how to do.
As I say, I'm positive Hitchcock made it as bland and as nothing as possible to make sure that they didn't use it.
Yeah, no, they're almost as catatonic as the scene is when he's in the institution.
Well, not even that. I mean, it isn't even done well. It's just it looks like they're ready for the setup now.
And you know what, Michael? I don't think Mozart's going to help.
Boy, that's a good one.
God, I love that line. I love that whole scene.
And you never see her again.
No, and that long,
that's
long
wonderful
fade out.
Her again.
Long fade out. Yeah. It takes forever for
such an amazing movie, because the way it just keeps pulling you in and pulling you in and pulling you in, and before I've seen it so many times, and it will show on TV, and it's like, oh, I'll watch the beginning, and before I know it, I've watched the entire thing.
You can't watch a few minutes of that.
Dear Scotty, and so you found me. Johnny, what's your number 5? I mean, we're not necessarily going in number order. Your 5th.
Okay, well, the first one I want to talk about is The Searchers. 1956, directed by John Ford, with John Wayne, of course, Jeffrey Hunter, Ward Bond, Vera Miles, John Quaylen, Harry Carey Jr., and Natalie Wood. For those of you that don't know, The Searchers is a Western about the search for a girl who has been kidnapped by Indians during a raid. And what I want to talk a little bit is that The Searchers is considered by many to be one of the greatest movies ever made. It's
not just Westerns,
Yeah, it's number 7 on Sight and Sound's all-time greatest movies list. I personally would not rank it that high. I think there's some great things in the movie. I think it's kind of uneven. I think Wayne is great in it, but some of the acting is not good, and it hurts the film.
Not a Jeffrey Hunter.
Jeffrey Hunter is
not good.
I mean, I can understand why they cast him. He's the right type for that role,
but he's not a good actor.
He's not good in it, and it hurts the film. Ward Bond is very good. Yeah. Vera Miles is very good.
The whole stock company.
And there's I mean, the photography is gorgeous in it, but there's an occasional jarring studio shot that obviously was not done on location. It just doesn't mesh well.
Was it a successful film when it came out?
That I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think it did really well.
Yeah.
And I know that the book it was based on had a different ending. Ford changed the ending. And the score is rather heavy-handed.
Yes.
It's Max Steiner.
And
for today's audiences, I'm sure there's some moments in it, because it's a Western that was made in the 1950s that will make you cringe.
Yeah.
Well, I find most of Ford's Westerns haven't aged that well.
Yeah. I think I would agree with
of
that.
Of the ones that have aged the best, I would say it's definitely
Although
Searchers.
people need to see Cheyenne Autumn, because that was
Cheyenne Autumn
I think it's an underrated movie.
that was for taking the Indians' point of view.
Yeah, it's a very interesting movie.
If you haven't seen it, check it out. 64, Cheyenne Autumn.
I think that Our Darling Clementine has aged pretty well.
Oh yeah,
I haven't seen that in a while.
down and dirty.
I think that's aged
Fort
pretty well.
Apache has not.
No.
The whole trilogy hasn't. Yellow Ribbon and
I do like Liberty Valance, except that James Stewart
Stewart
is too
old.
Do you know how I feel about this? Move on.
Yeah.
It's too old.
Getting back to the Searchers, I think the last shot of Searchers is one of the most beautiful and greatest last shots of any movie ever made. The entire movie just slowly builds up to that last shot. It's so beautiful. The use of the framing of the door, which is also the way it begins. And after what we've seen everybody go through, we want him so much to become a part of that family. But he just can't do it.
Too much poison in the veins.
Yeah.
There's no room for it. But the ending is kind of the same as Liberty Valance. There's no room for him in this new West.
Yeah.
All right, or like Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah.
There's just no room for that kind of brutal violence that he represents, and the racism that he.
Yeah, and you think that maybe perhaps after he's scalped Scar, and he has finally found his niece, that maybe he has exorcised himself of this poison, but he just can't allow himself to be part of that family, and he's basically destined to wander alone the rest of his life. It's very sad.
Yep, and the door just closes, literally. Yep. It's so beautiful.
To a black screen.
Which everyone's copied and stolen.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Tarantino in particular.
In Bastards,
Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, yes.
In that first scene, at the end of that first scene.
There is no more iconic final shot than that. I can't argue with that. I'm cheating for my number 5. I have my 3 favorite films that end in smiles. Just a silent smile. All right. First of all, City Lights.
Yeah, that's one I considered doing.
The end of City Lights is, when he's sacrificed everything to give the blind girl her sight back, and now she's working in the flower shop, and she sees him out there, and she thinks he's adorable and begging for some money, but she touches his hand, and the card just reads "You?" ? And Chaplin nods, and and Virginia Cherrill, who played the girl, is terrible. I mean, no Paulette Goddard, but
not everybody can be Paulette Goddard.
And the smile on Chaplin's face is just pure transcendence. I happen a lot of the 30s films. I prefer Modern Times as a whole, but the ending of City Lights, just that smile.
Yeah,
in City
I prefer
Lights.
Modern Times too, but you can't beat that ending.
Number 2, Manhattan.
Yeah,
when he runs all the way across.
It's sort of an homage to City Lights.
Yes, and she's just about to leave. He catches her just as she's about to leave for London, and he's like, "You're going to meet all kinds of people in London," and she says, "Sometimes you just have to trust people," and off she goes, and the camera's on him, and just that smile.
Yep.
My favorite Woody Allen.
Yeah, the creepiness of the high school girl aside, yes. I mean, I know I can't listen in terms of how it's shot, in terms of how it's scored. Who can argue?
Yep.
I mean, I'm from Philadelphia. I believe in God. So, I mean, who can argue?
Or as Diane Keaton refers to Marion Huntley, is that the little girl?
Van Gogh. Like an Arab, she said it. Right? Oh, God, I love that movie. And finally, the all-time best smile ever. Sully in Monsters, Inc. When at the end of which I think is Pixar's masterpiece. You can make an argument for Nemo. You can make an argument for Toy Story. You can make an argument
I like Monsters
for WALL-E, or for even Inside Out, which I think is just unbelievably smart. But Monsters, Inc. creates this universe out of whole cloth, and in the end, of course, Mike is able to surprise Sully by rebuilding the door to Boo's room, and you see Sully come in the closet door from Boo's perspective as though she's lying in bed, and she says, "Kitty!" And the smile on his face it's the whole movie it's just worth it for that. So best movie ending smiles ever: City Lights, Manhattan, and Monsters, Inc. That's my number 5.
I'm ashamed to say I have not seen Monsters, Inc.
Oh, it's definitely That's I think you might be right. I think that might be the best Pixar movie.
Pixar's at their best when they create universes out of whole cloth.
Because I love is WALL-E?
Yes.
Yeah, see that.
WALL-E's a very, very close second.
That to me, if it's better than WALL-E, then I really should see it.
Well, and of course, as a silent movie guy, I loved WALL-E for the first 40 minutes, which are completely without dialogue.
Yeah.
I mean, just wondrous.
Like a little bit of Jerry Herman.
All right. Yes, a little Hello Dolly. That's right.
Don't forget that.
All right, number 4, Mike.
Number 4. This is the only. By the way, with one exception, all of my films were considered financial failures or not financially
those are the ones we love,
successful films, and this one is the only one that was on my favorite for the intro, best opening.
I got one,
and that's
too.
Nashville. And
I knew he was going to go next. Did you see it? Did you
I
see it
sure as hell went, and
Film Forum?
And I talked to Joan Tewksbury.
Wow.
It was a very long Q&A afterwards because it was the last showing of the evening.
For non-New York, they actually showed Nashville on the big screen down at Film Forum.
And Film Forum, it's a new 4K restoration.
Wow.
Pristine print. Anyway, and there were a lot of people in the audience who hadn't seen it. And that was kind of fun, too. To describe for people who haven't seen, it's 24 characters. At the end of this film, all characters except one, Karen Black, because Karen Black never appears when the lead singer appears, are at the Nashville Parthenon for a concert for a political candidate. Hal Philip Walker, the two leads, Barbara Jean, Ronnie Blakely, and Haven Hamilton, they're singing. See, the camera roams the stage, and then it roams the audience. And then Barbara Jean sings My Idaho Home. And once again, we see the camera going to other singers on the stage, and we see the various characters in the audience. And then at the end, Barbara Jean is shot by Kenny for seemingly no reason at all. Haven is also shot as he was giving flowers to Barbara Jean, and he yells, "They can't do this to us. This isn't Dallas. This is Nashville. Sing, sing, sings." And he gives the microphone to Albuquerque, the housewife who's run away from her husband. And she winds up singing beautifully. We don't hear her at all throughout the film. And it wasn't a surprise to me because it was played by Barbara Harris, who won a Tony Award for The Apple Tree, which is considered, singing 3 different roles is considered a hard role to sing. And then she sings It Don't Worry Me, of all songs, which Keith Carradine wrote. And the crowd surprisingly settles down. You know, Barbara Jean is taken off the stage by all the other musicians, which I thought was interesting. It was this time I actually watched it. It was like literally all the other musicians who were scheduled to sing are carrying her off. And we presume that she dies because you hear her husband saying, "I can't stop the blood." And that's the only line of dialogue you hear for the rest of the film. And then you see the other reaction to some of the other characters to the assassination attempt. The vet who was in love with her, the would-be singer Suleen Gay, who wanted to be her. And the concert just continues with Albuquerque singing It Don't Worry Me, backed up by the Black Gospel Choir. And then the audience joins in, and it seems that everything has been forgotten about the attempted murder. The camera pulls back from the Parthenon and a huge sign that says Hal Philip Walker for President. And the American flag, and everybody's singing It Don't Worry Me, and the camera raises and looks up at the sky, and the film's over.
And that's it.
So powerful. And a little piece of trivia that I found out through Miss Tewksbury. There was another scene in the film Barbara Harris was supposed to have shot, where you actually do hear her sing. And it's done in some sort of studio. And this particular day, she didn't show up. She was like four hours late. Altman was ready to kill her. Barbara Harris was supposedly a little nutty, although Hitchcock adored her. Apparently, he was the one who talked her into doing Family Plot.
Yeah.
But so she just didn't show. And when she finally did come, he said, "Fuck it, we're not going to shoot this scene." And Tewksbury realized that really added to the film because it was important that we don't hear her sing until the very end.
Yeah. Again, great filmmakers realizing that what you don't show is often more powerful than what you do.
The question that I asked Ms. Tewksbury, because been wanting to know this for 44 years, is I had read that there was an 8-hour version And then Altman cut it to 3 hours and 30 minutes, and it was the studio that cut it down to the version that we see now, and that's not true. He did the cutting. He had full control. He realized he had to make it less than 3.5 hours, and it was all him. So,
did anyone talk to her about the ending? Did she actually, the way the ending is in the movie, did she actually write that, or was it?
Yes, but she did. A lot of it was improv. A lot of it was
because I know how Altman made movies and the way he allowed everything to be very, very loose and encouraged actors to improv and sometimes write their own characters. And
basically, it was structured that character would be shot, which, by the way, upset Barbra Streisand to no end.
Really?
When she saw that movie, because this is one of her big fears. And when John Lennon was killed, apparently reporters came to both Tewksbury and Altman saying, well, this is your fault,
Yes, of course. All right, then. But as beautiful an evocation of what America is as anything you'll ever see or read. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a masterpiece.
It is one of the best. Definitely his best, and I think one of the best films.
Although I have a sneaking love for McCabe and Mrs. Miller, but
that's a great movie too.
It's so hard to see Altman on a big screen. They don't. I've seen almost no Altman on a big screen.
I know,
and
that's what's so great about this. Nashville just being.
That's if you get a chance to see any Altman on a big screen, especially from 70 to 77 or so.
Absolutely,
which brings up that all the movies we're talking about deserve to be seen on a big screen.
Oh, absolutely. No. Well. Yeah,
we got to keep the big screens going. That's why I pay $5 for $10 for the popcorn or whatever, because that's where they make their money. I'm like, okay, I could bring in my candy, but if this is what keeps them open, I'll do that. Johnny O, number 4.
Okay. My next movie is Open City.
Città Aperta.
1945. One of the first movies of the Italian neorealist movement. Directed by Roberto Rossellini, with Aldo Fabrizi as the priest, Anna Magnani, and Marcello Pagliari.
Cross yourself when you say that.
I think you're going to say that. Cross yourself whenever you say Anna
Magnani.
And Aldo Fabrizi, he's great in it. He's really great.
He's a non-actor, right? He was.
No. They there are people in the cast who were non-actors.
Right.
But for those of you that don't know, Open City takes place during a Nazi occupation of Italy, specifically Rome, and it's about people involved in the resistance. And I urge anyone who has never seen this movie to see it as soon as you can, because it is one of the great movies, one of the milestones of cinema, especially the Italian neorealist, that's very accessible.
Yes, and a complete turning point there. I mean, I hate to cliche it, but there was film before Open City and there was film after.
Yeah,
it opened up a whole new possibility.
Yes, and even though, because it was made under very adverse conditions and a rather low budget, because when the Mussolini government fell, the whole Italian movie making, everything was just a shambles.
Yeah.
So they had problems getting film. There were problems with the way it was exposed. I mean, anything you could think of that went wrong pretty much went wrong. The amount of film they get, they would sometimes only get like little pieces of film. It's so just all sorts of problems. But and he used some amateurs. Some of the acting is a little bit uneven, but there's two just great, powerful performances in it. The ending, I will. Father Pietro, who is the epitome of what a priest should be. He's kind and compassionate. He stands up to evil. He has been involved with helping the resistance, and he's been arrested by the Gestapo. And eventually, after being forced to witness the person he helped being tortured, who eventually dies, his execution is done in a way that it's so simple that makes it more real and more powerful. And the thing is, the children that he's been involved with, who are also part of the resistance, they come to where the execution is to be, and they start whistling. get his attention, to know that they're there, they're supporting him, they're with him. And after he's murdered, the last shot of the movie is the children walking away by twos, arm in arm, supporting each other in their grief. They're devastated. We're devastated, but the way that it's shot and the way that the children walk away with their arms together, supporting each other, you know that they're going to continue to go on, and you know that they're not going to give up the fight. And there is some positive energy in that last shot.
Would you put it? I put Bicycle Thief slightly higher. Just
as a movie the
ending. Just the look on the father's face after he stole the bicycle, and they're walking away with his son. Papa. And
well, it's the shame.
Oh God, it's just wow.
They're both great movies. I mean, it's almost like apples and oranges.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's a reason Ingrid Bergman ran away with him.
Oh,
I mean,
and she was right.
So,
I would have done the same thing.
Although the only one of the Bergman films I really love is Voyage in Italia.
Yeah,
the George.
That one is pretty good.
Yeah, the
others are not technically.
But
not
a whole
good.
different way to make movies. You very rarely see that. Yeah, no, that's a beautiful. And again, it is hopeful in a film that is so bleak and realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
And I think today's filmmakers could really learn a lot by watching Open City, because some of the violence that is done so simply, but it makes it more real and more powerful. And now we're so involved with pyrotechnics.
I blame Sam Peckinpah for showing everyone shot in slow motion 3 different ways, in Wild Bunch.
Are you trying to start a fight with me?
No, but the fetishizing.
Well, Bonnie and Clyde is one of my honorable mentions, because that was a great ending.
My God,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, can't beat that.
Yeah.
For my number 4, I'm doing one more multiple entry, and then I'll stop with that. I promise. It's
he's cheating.
I'm cheating. I cheated on the beginnings. I'm cheating on this one too. Freely admit it. It's 3 movies that have endings that don't really happen, that are imagined by the characters involved. All right, so I start with Brazil. Terry Gilliam's Brazil from 1995, where Sam Lowry, Jonathan Pryce's character, is captured. After he's joined the rebels and is being tortured, in the chair by Michael Palin. And then out of nowhere comes Robert De Niro as Tuttle and everyone that comes save him, and you see him with Kim Greist in the truck, and they're driving to freedom. And no, that's not what's happening. He's back in the chair. He's always been in the chair. And we see the face of Michael Palin and the other guy looking in and saying, "Oh, we've lost him. His mind snapped." But so it is a tragic ending in that Sam has lost his mind, and yet, in a sense, he is free. There is a certain freedom that he's gotten from that. The only kind of freedom you could get in the society that Brazil details. So that was a stunner. Because I thought, oh my God, he escaped. Cool. And wait, what? And I was like, okay, that's even better. Number 2 is The 25th Hour, which I think is Spike Lee's most underrated film. It's about the last day of freedom in the life of Monty, played by Edward Norton, who's a brilliant kid, fireman's son, gets a scholarship to go to private school and just tosses it all away, dealing, as a low-level drug dealer. He's caught. He doesn't rat out the people he works for, so he's going to prison for them.
How long was he supposed to go in for? It was quite a while.
Quite a while.
Wasn't
and
it?
He's, and he's too soft for prison. Remember, so he has Barry Pepper plays his friend, and he has him punch him, in the park in the morning, so he'd be ugly, and they'll leave him alone. He's driving with Brian Cox plays his dad, and that's the film that 9/11 is all over.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, I think it's a minor masterpiece from Spike. They're coming up to the George Washington Bridge, and Brian Cox narrates what might happen if, instead of continuing up into Rockland, where the prison is up in Ossining, what would happen if they
Sing.
Yeah. Sing, sing, Gettys, sing, sing. And, sorry, I had to. And,
that's from Citizen Kane, folks.
Yeah, we have to leave Kane in there. And what would happen if he made a right turn and went on the exit ramp and headed west on the GW and kept on? And the father imagines this whole life, he could start over fresh, and you see him getting older with a family and new friends and a job out in the middle of nowhere. And Brian Cox says, you can never come home, but at least you'll be happy and safe. And cut, and we're back, and we're still in the car, and we're still heading north. It was just a thought.
Yeah.
But what a lovely thing.
Yeah.
And of course, finally, the only film that is on both my beginnings and endings, you guys are going to hate it, it's La La Land. All right? Because, again, you get, when she comes to the club with her new guy, and you get this beautiful, because it's expressionist, the backgrounds are so fake and deliberately dreamlike about what might have happened if they'd stayed together, if the two of them, Sebastian and Mia, had stayed together. And you get this little scenario, this little dreamlike scenario of what might have happened, and then you zoom in on the piano, and we're right back where we started. It's Ryan Gosling up on stage playing, and she's still out there in the audience with her guy.
I will say I liked the ending of La La Land much, much more than I did the beginning.
Yeah, you guys didn't like the song.
Well,
We've been through
that.
I didn't. The
Just
beginning.
another day of sun here in vintage sand. Woohoo!
And the ending has a special poignancy because he was very instrumental in where she is now.
Yeah, right. She's no success without him, and she's also an inspiration. She's an inspiration to him in terms of he comes to own the club, which was his dream, and I just thought it was a perfect ending in a movie of very perfect moments. Not a perfect movie, but lots of perfect moments. So again, those sort of false endings of Brazil by Terry Gilliam, of 25th Hour by Spike Lee, and La La Land by Damien Chazelle. Michael, numero 3.
Number 3. The Sidney Lumet's film version of Eugene O'Neill's Long Day's Journey into Night. And along with Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, I think this is one of the best filmed plays ever made.
Which ain't easy to do. Yes.
This one is much more straightforward than Virginia Woolf, and there's very, very little attempt to open it up, which I think is a good thing. But the final scene, where Mary Tyrone comes into the parlor dragging her wedding dress, and she's totally zonked on morphine. Her husband James and her two sons Jamie and Edmund are sitting drunk at the table. We've been leading up to this scene for like the last hour, and happily there was very little that was cut out of the original script. In fact, Eugene O'Neill was given credit for the script, which was kind of odd, seeing as he'd been dead for 7 years. But
T.S. Eliot got credit for Cats, so there you go.
That's true. That is true. Then Mary plays the piano, something unrecognizable, and then starts to talk about how her hands have become crippled and how her high school nun teacher was going to scold her because she hadn't been practicing. And as she is talking, the camera slowly, but very slowly, moves away from the table. She's now talking about how she has seen the Reverend Mother of her school and how she wants to become a nun. And the Reverend Mother is talking her out of it. She says she should go to parties after graduating. And then, if she still decides she wants to be a nun, she can always come back the following year. And as she tells this story, the camera continues in one move to pull back until all we see is a small white dot on the screen against the night fog. And then bang, a close-up of Mary with the line, "That was the summer of my senior year. I forgot what happened then. Oh yes, I met James Tyrone and fell in love and was so happy for a time." And then we see fast close-ups of all the three men, and then one more of Mary, and then it resumes to the white dot. Film is over. Now, I have to say, I prejudice.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
This is my favorite play of all time.
Yeah.
I have seen 7 different productions of this play, 4 in New York, 3 in London, plus 3 television productions. And yet I've never seen a better James Tyrone by Ralph Richardson, and I've never really seen a better Mary Tyrone than Katharine Hepburn. And I tell anybody who says, "Oh, Katharine Hepburn, she always does the same thing," I always tell them,
No.
Watch Long Day's Journey into Night, watch Bringing Up Baby, and watch The Philadelphia Story. You tell me she's always the same.
Yeah, that's the same actress. Yeah.
Yeah, she is just... And they only shot it in 3 weeks. It was an incredibly low-budget film. And it Unfortunately, it didn't make any money, although Hepburn did get one of her zillion Oscar nominations for it. And it's just to me, powerful,
I agree. It's my
film.
favorite play too, and I also think it's still the best version of that play that's around.
Yeah,
I can't argue with that. I saw the Philip Seymour Hoffman.
That was pretty close.
That was pretty good.
That was
good.
Vanessa Redgrave.
Vanessa Redgrave was I think as good as Hepburn, but different.
Yes.
And I thought Robert Sean Lennon was the best Edmund I've ever seen.
Terrific.
I didn't care 100% for Dennehy.
Nah,
he's too Willy Loman.
I've seen some terrible.
Ralph Richardson is absolutely superb,
never
brilliant.
was surpassed in that role, and he's never gotten the credit for that part that he deserves.
Let's give some love to Lumet. I was swinging by Turner Classic the other day, and 12 Angry Men was on, which I could recite the dialogue to. I've seen it so many times, I couldn't turn it off.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I was 12 Angry Men. I start getting involved with it again.
Lumet is such an underrated, because you very rarely see him directing.
Right, and even his failures are interesting. Frankly,
no argument.
I mean, as loopy as The Wiz was, there are still some wonderful scenes in that movie.
All right,
it's a terrible movie. But there are some scenes in there that are good, and I've never seen the show.
So I would say that version of Long Day's Journey is probably the best version of any play of any movie. Yeah, a movie version of any play.
Yeah. Virginia Woolf is also high on my list.
Oh yeah,
because of how they open it up.
Yeah,
and how brilliantly they open it up.
It's
but excellent. This one.
I'm trying to think of other. I can't think of any that are in that league. I have a soft place in my heart for the Daniel Day-Lewis Crucible.
Really?
I do love. My students love that.
Oh,
interesting.
I wasn't happy with that.
There's never been a great Death of a Salesman.
And this is the same year that the film version of The Miracle Worker came out, and Raisin in the Sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a pretty
yeah.
Check out episode 2, our early 60s American black and white. Yep, check it out. We're there.
You knew I was going there.
Let's gonna ease on down the road now to John for his number 3.
Okay, my number 3 is The Godfather Part 2. Is there anyone out there that has not seen the Godfather movies?
If they are, they're
not listening to us, right? Exactly.
Originally, I was going to go with Godfather 1, the famous closing of the door.
Yep.
Which completely alienates us from Michael. But I decided to do Part 2. 1974, directed by Francis Ford Coppola again. Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, Robert De Niro, John Cazale, Robert Duvall, Lee Strasberg. I'm not going to start to go into the entire movie, or
why not?
We're off.
We're chairman of the board. We got nothing but time.
We're gonna go right to the fact that Michael has ordered the execution of his brother Fredo. We see Michael alone as he's pretty much right after it's been done, because he's watched it from his room out on the lake. Yeah. And we see Michael alone as he's thinking about, we're not really sure what he's thinking about, but there is a flashback, a past incident with his family. Michael, Sonny, Tom, Fredo, and Connie are getting ready for their father's surprise birthday party, which happens to also be, it's not quite clear if it's actually it's the day after, I think, Pearl Harbor, the attack on Pearl Harbor. And it starts to come up, and Sonny says they're all a bunch of saps, and Michael tells them that he's enlisted in the Marines. Yeah. And Michael and Sonny fight about the fact that Michael is enlisted, and it's Fredo that praises him for doing so and offers his hand to Michael. Mm-hmm. And we see a different Michael. He's idealistic and does not want to be part of the so-called family business. And when their father gets home, they all leave, and we just see Michael sitting there alone at the table, and we hear off camera, surprise, and again he's alone. And then It dissolves to Michael in the present. He's older. He's aged. I think sometimes people don't catch it when they watch it on a small TV. If you see in the big screen, he's aged. It's years later. He's alone. He's completely alienated himself from his family and has betrayed himself and the ideals and aspirations he had as a young man. And that's the ending of the movie.
And it's perfect. It's almost like the equivalent of the baptism / wiping out of the Corleone enemies. Yeah. It's the two sides of him, and the devil wins both times.
Yeah.
Do you renounce the devil in all of his works?
I do.
I do. Boom. Yeah, and that's it. It's boy, was he a good filmmaker in that decade.
Yeah.
It's a devastating ending.
Yep.
Too bad they followed it with 3, but could have been good.
3's not as bad as everyone says. It's just
not
as good as it could have been.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's just not on the same level as the other two. And as to why he decided to cast his daughter, we'll never know.
It was supposed to be Winona Ryder.
And she had some sort of breakdown, was ill, whatever. Couldn't
I'm not sure if Winona Ryder would have been that good. I'm not.
She would have been better.
Better than I mean.
It's a low bar. Poor Sophia.
Well, she didn't even
fortunately, she discovered directing.
No, she did. She looked as if. Although I saw her act in a couple other films, and she didn't seem to want to be in them either.
Why am I here?
Yeah,
exactly. What exactly am I doing here? My purpose is. Yeah, I can't. That's a tough call just between 1 and 2. They're both so powerful in their own way.
Yes.
For my number 3, I'm going to Hitchcock. But of course, everyone's first thought with endings in Hitchcock is usually Psycho. That intense Kubrick.
Yeah, that's an iconic
close up. Well, I'm not even going to swat that fly. That's so amazing. Although it's kind of ruined by Simon Oakland's explanation.
I always thought it as sort of like someone kind of making fun of a psychiatrist who thinks he can just explain everything away.
See, Norman was exactly. We've talked about that before, but I'm going to go with the next film because when I saw The Birds for the first time, I was completely appalled at the ending. I didn't understand it. Because for those of you who have not seen the film, I'm not giving anything away because it doesn't end. We see the birds massing for another attack.
Yeah.
Tippi Hedren's been attacked. She's
more so than usual. My God, there's like thousands of them.
She's starting to go into shock. We think so. They've got to get her out of there. And we have, as we talked about before, that moment. When we talked about our favorite Hitchcock moments, I mentioned the moment in the backseat of the car where Jessica Tandy sort of strokes her shoulder, and it's the first positive human connection moment in that entire film. And John, you suggested that maybe that means the birds won't attack because the bird attacks do seem like a metaphor for our inability to connect with each other. And they drive away into the distance, further and further and further. The birds are massing. Fade to white, a universal picture.
Right.
Also, the sounds of the birds gets louder as they drive away.
Not even the end, as with Vertigo, as Michael pointed out about Vertigo. And I remember seeing it at the Regency up on and saying, "Is there a reel missing here? Did I?
I never thought that.
Oh, I mean, how do you end it? I mean, we don't know what happens to them. Are they okay? Is this only happening in Bodega Bay? Is it happening only in California? Is it happening all over the world? Why is it happening? Is it like nuclear testing like Godzilla or something?" And just it always now reminds me of Othello. Of the end of Othello when Othello tries to stab Iago and Othello's a soldier and he can't even kill the devil, so and he just says, "Just tell me one thing, man, why did you do this to me?" And Iago's answer as they drag him away is, "From this point on I will not speak word." Because, as we've talked about before, the only thing scarier than evil with a reason is evil without a reason. Total chaos. And that's what... Can you imagine... Think about... I was going to pose this as a question. How would they end The Birds now?
There'd be way too much emphasis on the pyrotechnics.
Oh, yeah. There'd be a, huge... There'd be flamethrowers and...
Yeah. And... Just,
someone dressed like Colonel Sanders frying the chicken.
It would lose...
No,
and whoever would attempt to remake it would never understand how the bird attacks are used to express the alienation between the characters when they're not connecting, or there's some sort of chaotic relationship that's coming to fore.
So the question is, what's happened to our imagination between 1963 and 2019? Because you're right, I don't think anyone could get away with the kind of ending that Hitchcock had in The Birds.
Too much television. I don't know.
No, but it may be. I mean, people will argue that what killed music, what some people killed pop music was MTV, in the sense that it handed you the images rather than you having to sort of create them for yourself. So I don't know. I just can't imagine them making it today. No one would have the guts to make that ending today.
No, true.
I think. Well, also, I think
like Vertigo.
Yes, absolutely.
There might be too many filmmakers now whose life is just film. They're not living a life and then using that to express
John,
something
I think that
in
is
film.
absolutely right.
Tarantino.
Yeah, not to mention any names, Quentin Tarantino. No, but even some of my best film students, lived in film, and if they got good advice along the way, it was, go out and live your life. That's where your ideas will come from. Your ideas will come from life, not from film. You can learn technique, but yeah, absolutely. And I've said this to you guys before, people having taught for over 30 years now, people say, what's the difference between the intelligence level of the kids back then and now? And I would say the kids today are just as smart as they were, and in some ways, especially technically, much, much smarter. But in terms of imagination, no. It's been kind of sucked out of them somehow, and so you'll never see an ending like The Birds again that leaves every single question unanswered, not even a one.
So also, because since you had mentioned Othello, Shakespeare, we know that Hitchcock was a big reader of Shakespeare. It shows up in his movies over and over and over again.
Indeed.
Yeah, so
big reader, period.
Yeah, and Shakespeare's coming back in my next one too, but that's a whole nother story.
There's a moment in the ending part that I always loved, when they first come out of the house and Rod Taylor goes and puts his hand on the railing, and that one bird reaches over and snaps at him. It's like, don't, like, you lose your cool.
Yeah, and don't bring the freaking lovebirds, Veronica Cartwright. What are you thinking? Haven't you ever seen these movies? Come on. Jeez.
Well, come on. Why does she go upstairs?
I know, and she does the same thing in Alien, too. Veronica Cartwright just never learns.
Why does Debbie Hedren go upstairs?
You don't see her anymore, do you?
Don't go up there.
No,
she's a good actress, but she kind of disappeared.
Well, because she probably went into the attic when she heard a noise. I mean, hello. All right, Michael, number 2.
Okay, well,
we're rolling.
From The Birds, we're going, this is sort of related a little bit. Duck Soup.
Yes, Birds to Duck Soup.
Which, as I was watching it last week, I realized this has absolutely nothing to do with Duck Soup, this movie.
What?
The title.
Oh, yeah, no, it's completely, horse feathers, or monkey
there.
Business, or,
it's anarchy.
It's total anarchy, but this, along with one that John is going to do, one of my favorite comedic endings, and I thought we needed a little comedy here.
Hail Fredonia.
By the way, let's not forget, this is the best Marx Brothers movie, I think.
Easily.
It's considered the best, although it was considered a big failure when it came out. That was why Irving Thalberg deemed that they had to have a romantic subplot.
Thus Alan Jones.
Alan Jones and Kitty Carlisle.
The poor man Zeppo.
Yeah, well...
There's no way to go through life.
True. But anyway, the country of Fredonia...
Hail
Fredonia!
Land of the brave and free.
Anyway, is at war with the nation of Slovenia. The 4 Marx Brothers are held up in a fortress with Mrs. Teasdale.
Yes.
The nation's benefactress. Several of the Slovenian soldiers walk right into the fortress and are taken prisoner. Then its leader, Ambassador Tentino, comes in and is captured. And he's played by Louis Calhern, who brilliantly keeps a straight face throughout the entire movie.
As does Miss Dumont.
Miss Dumont, according to Groucho, never understood what was going on.
All the better.
Which is maybe all the better. I think Louis Calhern probably did know and just had to keep a straight face. Anyway, President Rufus T. Firefly says that's game, and the four Marx Brothers start throwing oranges and grapefruit at Ambassador Tantino. And he says, I surrender! But Firefly says, sorry, you have to wait till the fruit runs out. And they keep throwing it. And then in the background, Mrs. Teasdale says, victory is ours! And proceeds to sing the Fredonia national anthem. Hail, hail, Fredonia! And the brothers stop. They just look at her, turn to look at her, and they start throwing fruit at her. And the funniest thing about that scene is she does not stop singing. And that's the end, and it's a brilliant end to a brilliant movie, and I'm curious what young people would think of something like that today.
Marx Brothers doesn't play that well.
Doesn't? I was wondering.
Yeah, I don't.
Because, as I think we were talking about this in a recent episode, because, accent humor, no. Silent humor, Harpo is cute, but they don't, and Groucho is just too fast for them.
Oh my God.
But I think
it goes flying by.
I think it's also partly the way those movies were made. Long takes.
Yeah.
Long takes, static camera, and I think a lot of younger people today they find that hard to get into.
Well, and that, it's really a radical movie.
Oh,
yeah.
It's politics.
It's chaos.
Although Leo McCarey was supposedly a right-wing Republican. So go figure.
It's almost Dadaist.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It's like the funny side of L'Age d'Or or something like that.
Yeah.
If Benoit had a sense of humor, he would have made that.
Just a couple of lines I want to throw out.
I've sponsored. So many.
I welcome you with open arms. I'll let you stay open.
I see you bending over a stove. Only I can't see the stove.
And of course,
hold me closer, closer.
And then, of course, my favorite. Remember, you're fighting to uphold the honor of this woman, which is more than she ever did.
I just love the whole scene with Louis Callaghan and Chico and Harpo about shadowing Firefly.
Oh, yeah.
Thursday was a doubleheader. Nobody showed up. Friday, we fool him. We don't show up. But did you shadow Firefly? Oh, sure, we shadow him all day. What day was that? Shadow Day. Pretty good joke.
But why did that movie not succeed? I'm curious.
I don't know. Maybe people miss the musical interludes. I find that hard to believe. But
yeah, because they usually would drag the... I mean, Night of the Opera wasn't too bad with its interludes.
Oh, no. And neither was Day at the Races.
But like, I was watching Coconuts the other night, and it's, oh my God, it's so...
Rickety.
Well, it's stage-bound.
Yeah.
But by Animal Crackers, they're moving, and those next 3 or 4 films, all of them are just beyond classic. You can't get a taxi, you can leave in a huff. If you can't leave in a huff, leave in a minute and a huff.
Okay, you win.
Exactly. I want to take up the tax. Well, you have to take up the carpet first. No, he's right. If you want to take up the tax, you should take up the carpet first. And the whole thing with Edgar Kennedy and the Lemonade, the classic silent film, slow burn actor.
It's a short movie. It's only 71 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a really short film, but there's just so much in there.
That and the classic thing with him looking
at the mirror.
The mirror.
The mirror bit, yeah.
That's just brilliant. Anyway, that's my number 2 favorite ending.
I cannot argue with that. Jono?
I'm up? Okay. Well, sorry to bring you all down.
Go ahead.
My second to last one is a Japanese film. Yugetsu. 1953, directed by the great Kenji Mitsuguchi. I don't want to start going into the entire synopsis of the movie. It will just take too long. But the movie it's sort of a fable. Takes place during, we're not quite sure exactly what time it is, possibly 16th century.
I think so, during the Shogunate, Japan. I think.
Yeah. It's about the perils of placing dreams above reality.
And usually putting women in the way.
Yes.
It being Mizoguchi, so they always suffer.
Yeah. And then, to put it simply, a maker of earthenware pots, after a little bit of success, he becomes obsessed with becoming rich and famous and making many more pots. And because of this, his distorted ambition becomes his undoing and indirectly causes the death of his wife. I don't want to go into too much detail about exactly what happens, because if you have not seen this movie and you care about movies, you have to see it.
Yep. I took my wife to see it at the New York Film Festival a couple of years ago, not knowing what the response was, and she was just, I've never seen anything this beautiful before.
That's the other thing I want to see, because it really demands to be seen on a big screen, because the images are so beautiful and the way they're composed. I don't know how well they will read on a TV unless you have like a gigantic, flat screen TV. So when he finally returns home from going through trials and tribulations of learning his lesson that he should have never left to begin with, his wife greets him, and they're both overwhelmed with joy and happiness to finally see each other. And the next morning he realizes that his wife has died, and that he was dreaming or maybe visited by a spirit or ghost. It really is the ghost of his wife, because after the potter Genjuro falls asleep, we still see his wife there. She lights the fire. She watches over him and his son.
And the child, yeah.
And then when dawn comes, it's when the other villagers come and explain to him what has happened. And there's narration from the wife. So she is a present spirit. She continues to look after them. And there's this beautiful line where she says, "You have now become the man I always hoped you would be."
And she says she's always going to watch over him.
Yes,
right?
yes. His sister-in-law brings food over to give to Genjuro's son, and the boy, at this point too, he's really discovered his true calling, and he's become a very loving father too. That's why she says, "You have now become the man I always hoped you would be." The boy brings the food to his mother's grave as an offering to her spirit, and we see him, it looks like he starts to pray. And as he adjusts a plant that he's put on the grave, the camera begins to rise, and we see the other villagers working in their fields. And despite all the great tragedy and sorrow, life goes on. If movies can be profound, then Yugetsu is one of the most profoundest movie ever made. It's amazing.
I have not seen it since college, but I still remember.
Yeah,
it's stunning. Yeah. It's. I mean, and there are others. There's Life of Oharu and there's Sancho, which are all made in that great early 50s period of his. But wow, yeah, I can't argue with that. And that almost fits into what I was talking about we thought the ending was going one way.
Yes,
we thought she was alive.
Yeah.
And his friend who goes off to become a samurai, his wife becomes a prostitute, right?
Yeah, that's how he first sees her, and he learns his lesson too the hard way. But they have been reunited. Yeah.
Just extraordinary, and I'm headed to Japan for number one, also from the early 50s, but that's a sneak preview. All right, so sorry for the cliche at number two for me, but I have to do it. Probably the most famous last line in a Hollywood film, and that, of course, is "Forget it, Jake." It's Chinatown. Because that's a line that has, first of all, it's a perfect movie. I mean, we've talked a lot about Chinatown, and there's no need to go through it. If you haven't seen it, you really can't quite call yourself a film fan. I know that sounds obnoxious, but it's true.
Well, I think that's true about all the movies we're talking about.
Yes, but it, to me, it has a couple of contexts that make it very interesting, because Chinatown comes to represent. It represents no cross. It represents all that power behind the power that you can't see, that you will never see, that is running your life and your world, and you have no idea that Noah Cross is out there because he's very, very quiet. And coincidence that this comes out, at the end during Watergate, at the apex of Watergate.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm sure that was a coincidence. Obviously, I don't think they planned that going in. But it's incredible. Second of all, in the context of Polanski's career, Polanski it's evil always wins, and good stands by helplessly, like Jake Gittes in Mr. Gitz in Chinatown, like oh, Rosemary, you don't have to join us, but a baby does need his mother. And especially, I told you I was going to bring back Shakespeare. Aside from Brannig's Henry V, my favorite Shakespeare adaptation is Polanski's Macbeth, because he actually improves on the play by adding that scene at the end. Because Shakespeare's Macbeth ends with resolution and restoration of Scotland. Right. Malcolm's king, everything's going to be fine, you're all lords now, the first that Scotland's ever seen, you're earls, and all hail, Malcolm. One more scene in the Polanski, where you see someone in a hood riding in the rain and you don't know what's going on, and of course, we stop outside and it's the witch's cave, and it's Donald Bain. The younger brother, and the whole, rather than closure, it's Polanski saying, oh, no. The whole thing is going to start again. Right. Even Pianist, which we talked about a couple of episodes ago, while he escapes, he makes it through the war, but the German who spares his life, right. We see him starving to death in a Russian prison camp. Right. Or Death in the Maiden, where Ben Kingsley, who we're not really sure if is the torture or not, we see him alive at the end at the same concert with Sigourney Weaver and her husband. Yeah. So this is a theme.
Far superior film to the play.
Yes, sure. and again, separate artists from art. I have no love for Roman Polanski as a human being. I'm just talking about his movies, but even Repulsion kind of ends that way as well, because Catherine Deneuve's character Carol just snaps, and she's being carried out, remember, and the camera starts wandering the floor and settles on the picture that's been knocked over, and it's of the whole family and the little blonde girl looking up at her daddy with terror.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we understand why she has behaved the way she has and why she snaps. I mean, a genius of a filmmaker, and Chinatown is, from My Daughter, My Sister, My Daughter, My Sister, My Daughter and My Sister, yeah. Through the shooting, through Evelyn's eye, which we've we've looked at the eye, we mentioned the eye before, through Catherine being taken by she shoots Daddy right in the and he doesn't even stop moving.
Yeah, he just keeps coming.
It's like Iago. You can't kill the devil, and and the cops, we don't know if they're operating independently or whether they're on Cross's payroll. They shoot at Evelyn, they kill Evelyn, and Catherine is whisked away to quote-unquote safety by her father/grandfather. Right. And all the basically good Jake Gittes can do is stand there helplessly while Joe Mantell, great character actor who plays his partner, says, "Line, forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown." And can you get any better than that?
No,
it's a truly great movie.
Yeah, and a truly great director, and I wish he'd led a better life. But
a theme I think that's prevalent in Chinatown, and it does kind of seep into other Polanski movies, is that whole idea that when good people stand by and do nothing.
Right, which was his experience in the Holocaust.
Yes.
I mean, as an 8-year-old escaping from the camps and being used as live target practice by the Nazis. Right. So he certainly comes by whatever problems he has, honestly.
Yes.
But, by the way, he was good friends with Jerzy Kosinski. You heard there's a new film of Painted Bird coming out.
Really?
Yes, coming out. It played at Venice, and it's extremely graphic, and it's like the book is, and extremely
controversial. I read the book.
No, it's not. No, Polanski's new movie is about the Dreyfus Affair.
That's right.
Which I've heard mixed things about coming out of Venice, but a Polanski movie is an event. I'm going. I hate to put money in the pocket of someone who's theoretically and in real life a pedophile, I guess you could say. But on the other hand, there's the man and there's the art. So, and that's an argument that is just beyond us. So, before we go into our number ones, any honorable mentions?
2001.
The Star Child.
Yes. Dr. Strangelove.
We'll Meet Again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
The Third Man.
Or Mein Führer, I Can Walk.
Yeah, well...
that whole...
The Third Man.
That's a great last line.
For studio movies, Casablanca.
Oh, how can you beat that?
Of course, Citizen Kane. I mentioned Bonnie and Clyde before. You mentioned Psycho. The 400 Blows.
Yep, the freeze frame.
Freeze frame.
My.
Yeah.
Oh, my. I'd add to that list 7, as I said. And we mentioned Inception. I'm going to throw in 2 more. One silent. Abel Gance, who became famous for doing Napoleon, shot a film in 1919 called J'accuse, which is about the First World War, and in which he had served and had been injured, and he filmed this. It's an anti-war film, and he actually, the last scene of the movie is the dead soldiers rise from their grave and march. And playing the dead soldiers were actual soldiers at the front who were probably going to be dead within the next few days. I mean, so the resonance of it is just, it's a slowish film, but it's just extraordinary. And I'm also going to add Aguirre, just Klaus Kinski on the raft, to quote Citizen Kane again, lording it over the monkeys, right? And what you want, one image of the insanity of colonialism and imperialism, there it is. Yeah. That blonde, with the helmet, his daughter's / potential lover has just been killed and floating down the river in madness. Right. Just extraordinary ending from Herzog there. So with
I got a couple.
Yeah, all right. So give me
Sunset Boulevard. I think that's a great ending. And Touch of Evil after the Restoration. The ending of A Touch of Evil, where Melina Dietrich says goodnight to...
I love that ending.
But I didn't like it originally because they added the very last few notes of the Henry Mancini score, which made it sound like a TV movie. But when they cut that, and you just see Dietrich walk off, and you hear the music of the bordello or whatever she was running, then it's just brilliant.
What does it matter what you say about a person?
It's thinking the same thing.
Wow.
And she shot that in one night.
Yeah, she's Dietrich.
Unbelievable.
Goddess. There you go. All right, those are good honorables. So, and your number one?
My number one... Okay, I am not saying that this is a number one movie. I'm not even saying it is a great movie. In fact, I didn't even have a copy. I went to Barnes & Noble and bought a copy because I really wanted to watch this movie again. But this is a total studio movie from the early 60s. It's Blake Edwards' Days of Wine and Roses.
Oh.
Now, there's a story behind the ending, but I'm going to give the ending. This is Jack Lemmon's first drama. He had just come off of Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, The Notorious Landlady. This was going to be his very first drama, and at this time, Jack Lemmon was a big star.
Was this before or after Irma la Douce?
This was before.
Before.
Yeah. But he was a big star. He could get anything he wanted made. He wanted to do a drama. Jack Warner decided that he would take the chance, risk Warner Brothers and whatever. He would make this movie. Now, the last scene in this, it's about 2 alcoholics, married alcoholics, played by Jack Lemmon and Lee Remick. The very last scene of the film is Joe and his estranged wife, Kristen, in Joe's apartment. Daughter is sleeping in the next room. Joe is a recovering alcoholic, and he's basically trying to talk Kristen into joining him in a life of sobriety. She's been sober for 2 days, but she cannot imagine a life without drinking. The irony of this is she was a teetotaler when she met him, and he got her into drinking by drinking, brandy Alexanders and things like that were dessert drinks. But he turned her into an alcoholic. He pleads with her, tells her that if she can't stay sober, they can't be together. And she tearfully leaves, and we see her walking down this rather shabby street in San Francisco, in this crummy neighborhood that Joe's lived in. And he's been sober, as I said, for over a year. And then the daughter, who's 5 or 6, comes out, gets a drink of water, and asks when her mother will be coming back. And Joe replies, "Mommy is sick. When she is better, she will be back." Daughter goes back to bed, and Lemmon looks out the window, and we see that same street that Kristen has walked down. But there are lights illuminating Bar that are flashing. And the last shot is Lemmon looking out the window with the word Bar flashing on and off in his reflection. So we don't know if he can stay
sober.
Sober. It is a totally ambiguous ending. Anyway, throughout the film, Edwards was shooting a few slapstick scenes to keep Jack Warner happy. For those people who don't know much about Jack Warner and didn't see Feud, which was about the Bette Davis-Joan Crawford feud, Jack Warner was a grade A prick. No other way to describe it. He threatened to sue the Marx Brothers when they made A Night at Casablanca over copyright infringement, until the Marx Brothers said that they were brothers before the Warner Brothers and they were going to sue him. True story. Yes. Not making it up. So anyway, finally Edwards had the whole his cut ready to go, and he showed it to Jack Warner, and Jack Warner was horrified by the ending. He said, "You cannot release the movie with this ending. You've got to have Lemon shoot another ending." Little did Warner know that Edwards had a feeling this would happen. So when the film was finished shooting, he told Jack Lemmon to go on a long vacation and get lost. And Lemmon, and I think at the time his new wife or girlfriend Felicia Farr, went to Europe telling no one where they were. And nobody knew where they were, including Edwards, from what I understand. I think, and every day Warner would call up Lemon's agent. "Where is Lemon? Where is Lemon?" "I don't know," and he really didn't know. And in the meantime, they had a limit on. They were supposed to put the movie into previews when they had the sneak previews. And it was supposed to be released on Christmas of 1962.
The Happy Holiday.
And Happy Holiday. And finally, Warner just threw up his hands. It was either not shoot the ending and go on to 1960, or put the movie into 1963. And he decided to release the movie as it was, against his better judgment. The film was an incredible hit. It was the number 6 or 7 film of 1962. Lemmon and Remick both got Oscar nominations. Remick is wonderful in this movie. She was such an underrated actress.
I've only seen it once, so I have to see it.
Well, I can lend it to you now. I have it. But she did that whole last scene without any makeup. She looks haggard. She was very underrated, unfortunately. She just didn't get... I think this was her only Oscar nomination, too. But it is a very good movie. It's a little bit marred by too much of the title song, which did win the Oscar, Henry Mancini's.
Naturally.
Just a little too much music, and there are a few things where it's a little studio-ish. But that ending, I remember the first time I saw it, I was just overcome by that ending, and I thought, how did they allow this ending to be made in 1962? And Edwards and Lemmon had to fight it, and they never told Warner that it was all planned, that Lemmon was going to stay lost. The story never came out until after Warner died.
I never associate Blake Edwards with drama.
No, but he did a few. But no, I think actually that was. And Mr. Lucky, he did a couple of westerns.
That's right, Mr. Lucky.
He did a couple of westerns, but no, comedy was mostly what he did. But this was his drama, and I think he knocked it out of the park. And Lemmon is great. And Lemmon wasn't allowed to do another drama for another 11 years until he did Save the Tiger.
Save the Tiger, sure.
That's right.
And that, Lemmon got paid literally nothing.
Just watch the screen, Ira.
Yeah.
Such a good movie.
Yes, it is.
All right.
But anyway, the reason I put this as my number one is because of the story of what they had to do to keep this ending. By hook and by crook, and it was definitely...
It was worth it.
I mean, apparently Warner threatened Lemon's agent with his life or something.
That sounds about right.
He was such a horrible man.
They all were. All those
but he was in... I mean, did you see Feud?
No.
Stanley Tucci played...
Oh, he's great in it.
And he's great in it, but it's just like, oh, you are an awful person.
They really all were. All right, but they created beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Jack Lemmon...
Well, after presenting 4 rather bleak, sad endings, I decided that I wanted to end a comedy. And the comedy I chose is Some Like It Hot.
Well, that's the place to end.
Yep. 1959, directed by Billy Wilder, screenplay by Billy Wilder and I.A.L. Diamond, Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, Marilyn Monroe, Pat O'Brien, George Raft, and the one and only great Joe E. Brown.
Joe E. Brown. And Nehemiah Persoff as Little Napoleon.
That's right. That's right.
Some say he's grown too big for his spats. A great little part.
For those of you that don't know, Some Like It Hot is the antics of two musicians who are desperate for work and decide to imitate women and get work in a all-women's band. And
don't forget to tell them why.
I'm not going to tell them why.
Oh, okay.
The only way I can do justice to the ending is to read the dialogue. There's no other way. So,
well, we got a couple actors in the room, so
he probably knows every line. So, okay.
There you go, guys.
I'll do Osgood.
Okay.
This is amazing. This is like East Village Dinner Theater. This is great. I should be clinking silverware or something. I knew I'd finally get you guys to do this.
So, in the first place, I'm not a natural blonde.
Doesn't matter.
I smoke all the time.
I don't care.
I have a terrible past. For 3 years, I've been living with a saxophone player.
I forgive you.
I can never have children.
We can adopt, son.
You don't understand, Osgood. I'm a man.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Lovely. Yes.
There's no other way to do justice.
There's no other to Wilder's dialogue. No.
Is there a funnier ending to a movie?
No. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think through Wilder. No. I mean, "Shut up and deal" is a great last line.
Yeah,
but it's not.
It's not really funny.
It's not that.
I think the most amazing thing about Some Like It Hot is I've seen it so many times. But each time I see it, and I can practically say all the dialogue before they say it, I laugh. I still laugh. No matter how many times I've seen it, I still laugh.
That's the thing. I think we have directors these days who are very, Paul Thomas Anderson or people like that, who are just as acute visually as any of the old masters. But who can write like that anymore?
Yeah.
And anybody. No one even comes to mind.
Yeah. I know that Jack Lemmon told a story about the part when he starts playing with the maracas. And because it wasn't
Who's the lucky girl?
It wasn't.
I am.
Because it was not in the script. And he said he was going over his lines the night before, making sure he was all prepared. And he came in the morning, and Billy Wilder handed him, "Here, practice this a minute." And his first thought was, "My God, this man is lost his mind." And he did not understand why he was using the maracas. And then when he saw, I guess, I don't know if it was a preview or just saw the rushes, he was like, "Now I understand."
I get
and
it.
the reason Wilder had him do this is because he wanted time for the audience to laugh so they wouldn't miss the next line. Because it was such a great, funny scene.
I heard a terrible story about a girl who went to Bryn Mawr. God, there's so many. I mean, what's
they
not
found
funny?
her strangled with her own brassiere.
She ratted at her best friend.
Nobody talks like that.
Exactly right. We named the oil company after it.
Which is sort of reminiscent of Cary Grant and Bringing Up Baby with the glasses.
A little bit.
It's just beyond perfect. We're touching on some really good ones here. All right, no argument for that. But I'm going serious with mine, and all you need for mine is a swing, an old man, and some snow. And of course, it's the ending. When you think of Akira Kurosawa in the 50s, you think of sweeping epics along the line of Seven Samurai. But Ikiru, which came out in 1953, may be his masterpiece, and it's a very simple story.
I agree.
It's about a sort of faceless bureaucrat named Watanabe who has done nothing with his life. He lives a gray life, and his wife is gone. He has a son, but he has no relationship with him. And the film opens with an X-ray of his stomach, and he's got inoperable stomach cancer. So what is he going to do? So at first he just throws himself into just gets drunk, and there's that beautiful scene at the bar where he meets this young poet guy, and he asks for a song, and the song is this lovely old song about hanging on to your youth while you still have it because it's going to pass quickly. And then, boom, we see a picture of him, of Watanabe, and we're at his funeral. 6 months, maybe 8 months have passed, and everyone's talking about Watanabe and what he's done. This amazing thing that he's done. And then a stranger comes in, and it turns out it's the policeman who found Watanabe's body, and it turns out that he found him in the playground that he built for the children. That was his last thing. It was his legacy. It was because he wouldn't take no for an answer, because what did he have to lose?
Right.
So he parked himself at bureaucrats' doors for hours, for days, for weeks, and wouldn't let anyone go until, by hook and by crook, he got the playground built, turned this horrible piece of urban wasteland into this playground that the kids would play in forever. And as the policeman reminisces about what he found, we see his flashback, and it's Watanabe on the swing on the last night of his life, and the snow, like the snow in James Joyce's The Dead, which Houston ends that film with too, which is so beautiful, singing that song about life being brief. Life is brief, and it's a film that changes you as a human being. It's a film that transcends film. It's a film that transcends art. It is. I think it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and the just that image of the old man who has finally left a legacy on the swing, ready to die now, and it gets no better. Unexpected from the ending of the maker of Throne of Blood, which is 10,000 arrows shot at Toshiro Mifune at once. But my lord, and Akira is a film that you can see on a small screen, because it doesn't have that epic Kurosawa scale.
It's interesting because it's released the same year as Yugetsu.
Yep, and only a year after Tokyo Story, sort of the Ozu's Tokyo, the big three of Japanese filmmaking.
Yeah.
Kurosawa was always not as beloved in Japan as Mizoguchi and Ozu were, because he was not considered Japanese enough. He was considered too Western. And his influences were very much Shakespeare. Bad Sleep Well as Hamlet, and he did films based on Dostoevsky, and his last great film, of course, was King Lear, which was Ron. But my goodness, when that talent is brought to the human scale,
it's a very accessible movie too.
And Watanabe's played by Takeshi Shimura, who is not as famous as Mifune is, but maybe the greatest. Could play anything, because in his next film for Kurosawa, he plays the leader of the Seven Samurai. So wow, I cannot see that without crying my eyes out every single time. Just the man on the swing in the snow. So there you have it, my friends, our favorite endings, and we kind of went all over the place, and but now, and you promised me you're going to do this, all right? So now we have to have the first annual Daniel Plainview End of There Will Be Blood, End of That Movie Imitation Contest. All right, ready? All right, I'll go first. I'm finished. Michael?
I'm finished.
John? I'm finished. That's good. I'm finished. I give it to John.
I do too.
So we're finished. We finished the episode. We successfully did, except we have to do a brief necrology. We have to mention the loss of Peter Fonda. Never mind, although I know you guys don't like Easy Rider. I'm not a huge fan. Mm-hmm. I do like some of the stuff he did with Monty Hellman, some of the lower budget, some of the biker films from the 60s are interesting. The Corman stuff.
Yeah, but he's not in it. That's the problem.
Yeah, I can't argue with it. I wish I could.
Now, I've never seen The Hired Hand, which I've heard is...
I never did either.
Very good things about that after he died.
And was nominated for Ulysses Gold.
Ulysses Gold, he won the New York Critics Award.
Which is excellent.
Which is excellent. I would have given it to him.
Best movie about beekeeping ever.
No, but he's really good in it.
Well, he does his father.
He did, but yeah.
You could do worse.
And then the following year, or 2 years later, he had a very small part in Steven Soderbergh's The Limey.
Right.
Oh, which is a very great movie. Point blank redone. Yeah.
He is wonderful in it. And he's
I love the line. That's right. He plays the Hollywood exec.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember.
It's a small part.
Oh, is that a good film?
Yeah. And
it's an odd career.
Yeah.
Well, it is. Yeah.
Especially compared to his sister, not just his father.
Yeah.
I guess he and his father did work together, didn't they? I know the three of them.
There is Wanda, Nevada. Is that the Wanda, Nevada? Is that the movie he appears in? He has a small part in it.
But he when he started out, at least in the films I saw, and especially in Easy Rider, he's actually quite dreadful. I mean, it's almost like...
He's pretty good in that one war movie, The Victors.
The Victors, yeah. Who directed that?
I don't know.
Because other people...
Research.
George Hamilton was actually pretty good in that. So to make George Hamilton pretty good...
That's not bad. That's not bad.
And the other... director who was good with actors.
Yeah, it's possible.
No other people, but we have to pay tribute to a departed institution. After 71 years, non-New Yorkers, the Paris Theater closed. It is literally the last screen in Manhattan that was a single screen.
It is.
It was the last theater that hadn't been plexed, and it was just epic. Just a gorgeous, beautiful theater that, closed and opened and closed and opened.
Well, it was usually open. I mean, they did some renovating with the seats, but it just didn't seem to work. And I think one of the reasons, besides financially, there don't seem to be big foreign films or art films anymore.
No, we've talked about why that
and
may
I
be,
think that was really the demise. I mean, when I was a kid...
But they're all playing at smaller theaters now. Like
Angelica.
Well, for 2 years, a man and a woman played at that movie.
Good soundtrack.
I don't happen to like the movie.
Yeah, that's a soundtrack around a film, yeah.
My first date was, they had played for a year, was Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet. That was the... Howard's End ran there for
I remember seeing
months.
A couple of the merchandise films there.
Room with a View was there for like a long time.
And Morris, I saw there.
And it was funny because I just live up the street from the Paris, and I could always tell if the Paris had a hit because I could see a line outside my window. They haven't had a line in a long, long, long time, and I took it's the kind of movies that are coming out. Paris also had a deal that they had to have exclusive rights,
right?
And that just
those days.
But
it
was a special theater. You always felt when you walked in it, you felt like I'm going to the movies.
Yeah,
right. You felt like it was the early '60s, and you were going to sit next to Susan Sontag or something like that, right? And just engage in light conversation.
Yeah. Also, when I was a kid, there was no refreshment stand. They did a lot of those theaters. Cinema 1 and 2 was another example.
Yeah,
all they had was espresso coffee, which they gave out for free.
Interesting. Carl Foreman was the director of The Victors.
The screenwriter.
Yeah.
He also directed it.
He was a Blacklist.
Blacklist that he had written.
Which brings me to a question. I just wonder if, because Peter Fonda was very outspoken politically, I just wonder if how much his career was affected by that.
Jane was known to visit Hanoi once in a while.
Yeah,
so
but
didn't hurt her.
Jane was willing to play the Hollywood game.
Yeah.
And I think Peter just did not.
He worked a lot, though. He did a lot of movies. They just weren't very good.
He showed up in some odd things.
Yes.
And sometimes showed up on TV.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
And I think I wonder if a lot is because when it came to doing a movie, you want to do his own stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Could be. But he's superb in Ulysses Gold.
Oh, yes.
It was a revelation watching him in that.
Yeah. He's
so there you go. Peter Fonda missed. Now I want to know what happened to Bridget. We haven't settled that question yet. She did.
I think she retired. She's married to Danny Elfman. But she married him, I think, after she retired. She got into a serious accident, but I don't think that affected the reason she retired. She just
hung him up.
Hung him up. She had children with Elfman, and supposedly very happy.
All right,
she may come back.
Also, she's in her 50s now, and she might be at sort of the in-between age where it's harder to cast her.
Yeah, but she retired.
I don't know.
Well, a good 10, 15 years ago.
All right. So, but guys, this was, for an episode about Last, this was an episode of great firsts. You got to hear me sing. We got to hear you guys act. And John won the first annual Imitation Daniel Plainview contest. So that is pretty awesome.
Do I get a big hat now?
Only if you say, I've abandoned my boy. Say it, John.
I've abandoned my boy.
There you go. Give him the hat. All right, send him on his way. Our October show is going to be a slightly different thing. We usually have a slightly larger focus, but we are going to focus on only one film. And it's because it's a film by one of our greatest directors. That it's 20th anniversary this year. It's a film that Michael likes very much, that John sort of likes, and I despise beyond all loathing. So we're all going to have to watch it again and come back to it. And of course, that's Stanley Kubrick's last work, Eyes Wide Shut. So we're going to focus our entire next episode on reopening Eyes Wide Shut. See what I did there? Reopening. That's why I make the big money. Intended. None taken. And there you go. So, and then anticipation, because November and December we're going to do a two-parter, our top 10 of the decade. So
is it too early? Should we wait until January?
No.
Well, we don't know. There might be something great that comes the last week of December.
Yeah, all 8 hours of The Irishman. Yeah, I can't wait for that.
I've seen that November 4th, actually.
8 hours. it's the greed.
3.5
it's
hours.
the greed cut.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's really.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know it was going to be that long.
So, but maybe we'll talk about it. But we definitely want to do a two-parter. 10 through 6, and then 5 through 1.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And we'll see how it goes. And Mike's in a play, so
Cat in the Hat Tin Roof.
So he may not have time, which is good news. So as ever, Vintage Sand is a 5 9s and a 4 production. We want to thank Melissa for her production help. We are not thanking Mama Sue for the space because, once again, hopefully for the last time, we are at Vintage Sand Studios Sur-la-Mer.
Where we do research and special effects.
That's true, and all are welcome. So, and we thank Gabby for the logo. Please check out our website and give us suggestions and feedback and tips. That's www.vintagesand.com. And happy watching to you all, especially as the Oscar season films start to hit the screens. And may your favorite films always be streamed.
And hail Fredonia!
Hail Fredonia! Land of the brave and free.
Fredonia!